Hey everybody, thank you for taking the time to watch this breakdown on Facework and interracial relationships. Um, this was a really good read. It was a lot easier language than we usually see in some of these academic articles, so I hope you guys do get the time to read it because it was really interesting and I really liked the subject. Um, so let's get started. Since there are some international students in the class and given the topic as is, I felt that it was important to include some context regarding race relations and interracial couples in the United States. Throughout US history, there has been a lot of resistance towards interracial couples. In 1966, H.G. Bagel conducted a study and found that this was particularly the case for Black and white couples. In 1991, Gallup ran a poll and found that 45% of white Americans disapproved of interracial couples, which was actually an improvement, but still behind where we should have been. But as times move forward, this has gotten better. In 1997, Gallup ran a similar poll and found that 27% of white Americans disapproved of interracial couples rather than 45%. So things changed pretty rapidly. I haven't seen anything more recent, but things are looking up for sure. Some areas, though, have lagged behind. For example, interracial marriage wasn't legal in Alabama until 2000. More than 30 years, it was the ban on interracial marriage was made unconstitutional. And this was put to a vote that year. More than 40% of the population voted against removing the ban. So clearly there's still some tension in some areas. But most of the opposition that couples face actually comes from within their families, and the opposition that they see from the general public is typically a lot calmer than we may anticipate. As we move forward, Facework and face are really important concepts to understand for the purposes of this article and what the researchers were trying to find. According to the article, face is the positive social value a person effectively claims for himself by the line the others assume he has taken during a particular contact. In English, face is how you perceive or present yourself to others. People are always working consciously or subconsciously to protect their face. Building on this concept, there is also positive and negative face. Positive face is an individual's desire to be approved of by others. Negative face is one's desire to have control over their own actions. There are also face-threatening acts. These are actions taken by others that an individual or couple may perceive as an attack on their positive or negative face, such as an inconsiderate remark or staring, the most common threat reported by interracial couples. To conduct the following research, the researchers interviewed 19 different interracial couples. All of the couples were some variation of Black and white partners. Most of the people interviewed were from the United States, while two individuals from different couples were from other places. One was an African man, while the other one was a woman from England. Researchers conducted the interviews individually, separating couples, and the interviews were semi-structured. So let's talk now about what some of the researchers found. Interracial couples participate in two different kinds of face work. The first of these kinds is preventive face work. This is when couples work to avoid or minimize a face-threatening act before it happens. Interracial couples use preventative face work in three ways. The first way is educating each other, which is an important step for avoiding conflict. White members typically fell in line with whiteness theory, which states that white culture becomes the assumption and the system of normalcy. Black members of the couple felt more confident in their knowledge of their partner's culture than white couples did. White members typically had a lot more to learn about their partner's culture than otherwise. One interviewee, Nicole, described teaching her white boyfriend, saying, "I have to educate him about how my parents are, how he should act in front of my parents, and how he should not act. If we are out with my friends, what he should and should not say. He cannot correct them, meaning Black people, in public. Educating others is also an important step that interracial couples talked about a lot. In fact, most of the interviewees believed that education was the best response to racism in America. None of the interviewees felt that being in an interracial relationship was wrong. Most of them believed that their relationship could make a difference in the world and that it could break down racial barriers, help improve racial relations, and they tried to educate anybody who was willing to listen about their relationship. Acknowledging that region matters is something else that most interracial couples experience and have to go through. Couples have reported preparing themselves and being cautious in regions that exhibit more racism and tension, such as rural Georgia, but they also take into account areas that have the opposite effect, where it's just accepted that interracial couples are a thing, such as Los Angeles. Some individuals mentioned giving advanced warnings about their partner's race to their family before meeting them or to their friends before bringing them along to an event. This is something that may happen a lot early on in these interracial relationships, but typically fade down over time and people become more aware or just less cognizant of the fact that their partner's race may be an issue. It just becomes more normal to them. This is something that I personally can attest to and experienced. On the contrary, couples also participate in corrective facework, which is how couples respond to face-threatening acts that have happened to them. As mentioned before, most common threats to people who are in interracial relationships come from a lack of acceptance from family or from staring. They respond to these face-threatening acts with corrective facework in 5 different ways. The first way is respond to it. Some members reported directly responding to people who threaten their face. For example, Matthias stated that when he sees someone staring at him, his partner, he'll just smile back at them. Other couples respond to each other, discussing actions of others as they notice them or after they notice them, and then just having a conversation amongst themselves about the interaction. Some choose to ignore that the face-threatening acts are happening. For example, Mark, who is the Black partner in his marriage, said that he just never looks for these things, tries to ignore them, and just doesn't notice if they happen or don't happen. Anastasia, the Black partner in her relationship, mentioned that she does notice his behaviors, but she tries to brush them off and move on and continue with her life. Some couples get used to it. They report accepting that they can't easily change the world and that they need to be comfortable within it. Other couples rationalize threats to their relationship in ways that affirm the value of it. Krista used a religious perspective, saying the Lord does not have any problems with this. It was good because the opposition made me look at the situation and see where it really stood. Others used their love for their partner as a way to counter face-threatening acts, especially those who have had damage in their family relationships because of their relationship with their partner. And finally, the last way that couples deal with face-threatening acts is by reframing them. Sky stated, "You can't blame people for being themselves. It is what it is, and really you can't spend too much time working on worrying about other people's feelings about your relationships. There's really no reason to give it much thought." This may sound similar to acceptance, but rather these couples are reversing the threats directed at them back at the people who disapprove, blaming them for their ignorance or closed-mindedness. Put simply, researchers found that there has been evidence of continued change within society in regards towards our response towards interracial relationships and how interracial couples respond to face-threatening acts. Couples continue to cope in the ways that have been outlined by researchers since the 90s and before, and used by the researchers of this article. and the findings leave reasons for cautious optimisms as feelings of racism continue to subside and are slowly replaced by more accepting trends within society. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope that this was a helpful breakdown on this article. I hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy. I wish that we could all be in class together, but thank you again for taking the time, and I hope you all have a good week.